So here is an image of math or mu alpha theta equals water, which I made today. Letter M comes from the Egyptian scythe or sickle, which is a wooden handled shaped device filled with flint stones, originally from 6,000 years ago, and it is the device used for reaping crops when they're grown. It has a value of 40, and the shape of it became the letter M. Letter A is a hoe made of 2 sticks bound here and tied together with ropes here. It has a value of 1. It is where letter A came from. And theta is the Heliopolis Enad. And in Greek it is this symbol. In English it makes the sound th, T-H. And as we see here, there's 9 rays of sun going between, or 9 rays of light going between this sun and this sun. So 40 plus 1 plus 9 equals 50. So the equation here is that math equals 50, or water. And I just posted this 8 hours ago. And user Zekatbish asks, maths are really water. Can you explain this to me? The fact that she uses the letter S means she's from Europe, specifically Italy, as I recall. In America, we just call this word math. So since I just finished making over the last 4 or 5 days the new cover to the Egypto-Alphanumerics book, Mathematical Origin of the Alphabet, where I have all 28 letters mapped out in sharp imagery, where they came from, their numbers, their modular 9 values. I'll try to give a quick answer to this question. So the image in question here is this. So the book cover is going to explain that 40 is letter M, A is the Egyptian hoe, or the Shu air god, mixed together, and letter 9 is the Enad, or the 9 gods of Heliopolis. And you note that these 8 gods here are what are called the 9 gods of Hermopolis, and they're each holding the letter A, ho. And this is where letter H comes from, which is shown right here. These are the 8 gods of the Ogdoad. This is where the word heat comes from, because it has to do with, these are all atmospheric gods, and it has to do with things such as humidity and electricity and lightning, and pressure and temperature. So several years ago, probably more than 5, I made this image where Thales chirps his famous motto, "The principle behind all things is water, for all is water, and all goes back to being water in the end." So Thales, for those who don't know, he studied in Egypt, and he came back And as rumor has it, he taught all of Egypt mathematics. And when I made this image, I was fully not necessarily certain of exactly what he meant by this riddled quote. Now I understand it. So I'm going to summarize exactly what he's talking about here. So this is a post before prove that math equals n. If you calculate the word value of math in Greek, mu plus alpha plus theta, it adds to 50. That's equation 1. And if we look up the value of the letter n in Greek, we find that it equals 2, or that it equals 50. That's equation 2. Specifically, if we go to our Greek alphabet table, we find that letter n has a value of 50, and it has a word value of 450. And that it is the 14th letter. So where does this come from? That's our question. So firstly, we need to look at the Egyptian agricultural cycle, and that on June 24th, Sirius rises after being disappeared from the sky for 470 days, and this marks the start of the annual Nile flood, which lasts 150 days. Now the first 50 days corresponds to the rise of the Nile flood, and 50 is the value of n. So that's where the value of n comes from. And this water shown here comes from the melting of the Ethiopian mountain snow. So here's another view of this. We have our hoe and sow season, harvest season. We cut our crops at letter M, and then the flood starts at letter 14, and then everything starts again. And when we get to Phi, we rotate back to Chai, which births the cosmos, and then Psi has to do with the Orion constellation. This has to do with the Milky Way. Sampi has to do with the Osiris, Apis, God, and the merging or the alignment of the ecliptic pole and the Polaris pole, and then the sun is birthed out at letter number 1000. So now, in a few minutes from now, pay close attention to the why 28 goes into 1. Firstly, as we'll talk about shortly, is that in Hebrew, Aleph equals 1000. So Aleph mathematically turns into 1, and in Greek, the word lotus equals 1000. So lotus births out the new sun, and that goes back to 1 or A. So the whole cycle starts over again. And then, like they said, everything goes, you hoe and sow your seasons, and everything goes back to letter N. So to give a good visual of this, if we search letter N, we see that what Thales is talking about here is this 36 cataract region, or the Napata end branch of the Nile River. So the snow melts in the Ethiopian mountains, initiates the flood of the Nile River, and this is where everything goes back to water, which is what Thales is talking about. And the flood rises for 50 days after the snow begins to move upwards through the Nile. So, to summarize, we hoe at the start of January. We plant our seeds, and when we get to letter M, we reap. That's where we cut our crops, make our bread. And then the flood starts again when Sirius rises, and everything goes back to water, or being water, which is what Thales said, and the process starts again. Now pay attention to the numbers here, because this is where the mathematics comes in terms of reduction of. So we go to 60 to 70 to 80 to 90, and then we get down to Serapis, which is the Apis Osiris, otherwise known as Janus, the Roman god, a two-headed god, or January to Americans. And at 900 we go from the 27th letter to the 28th letter, which is Lotus in Greek. Again, as I said, that in Greek that equals 1,000, and in Greek this is the number 1,000 is called comma A, or A primed, I guess, is what we call it now in mathematics. And this births out the new sun. So the sun, after we've went through this, goes back and becomes A, which is the value 1. Also, in Hebrew, Aleph equals 1,000. So in the Hebrew language, that's another cipher that goes backwards and converts the 1,000 value of A back into the 1 value of A. And mathematically, in modular 9 arithmetic, all of the letters A, I, R, and the lotus letter, or comma A, are reduced backwards into 1 according to modular 9 arithmetic. So that's what Thales meant when he said that all begins with water, moves through the alphabet cycle, is birth. The lotus rises out of the water and rebirths the new year's sun, and it goes back to A, and then the cycle moves this way, or the crop cycle, and everything goes back to letter N, number 14, and the cycle starts again.